Hi, this is Holly from The Sweet Simple Things, and welcome to my channel where we make healthy and nourishing recipes the whole family will love. Make sure you hit subscribe to see all the latest recipes. On the menu today are these whole wheat sourdough garlic knots made with fresh milled flour, pesto, shredded mozzarella. These are amazing and you're gonna love them. We're gonna start by autolyzing our flour and water. So I'm using fresh milled flour. This will work with store-bought flour as well. This autolyze step is really important for fresh milled. I would recommend doing it even if you're using bagged flour though. I think it'll give you more consistent results. The flour is going to seem pretty dry at this point. We're going to be adding more ingredients later that will increase the hydration, but we just want to get the water into the flour and let it sit for about half hour. After that half hour is up, we're going to add just a little bit of maple syrup. I'm doing about 30 grams. And then we'll add some butter, a half a stick, some sourdough starter. I'm using 50 grams because I'm going to let this ferment overnight. Enriched doughs that have like the butter and syrup added and stuff tend to ferment a little bit more slowly, but we still don't want to use too much starter because it can go real fast with fresh milled flour overnight. Anyway, a little bit of salt. And then we are going to use the paddle on the KitchenAid just to get this all incorporated together. Once it is mixed thoroughly, then we'll switch over to the dough hook and do a little bit of kneading. We are just going to knead until the dough is smooth and supple. We don't need to try to pass a window pane test or anything. This isn't a typical loaf bread, so really we just want the dough to be smooth and supple. And once it's in a nice clean ball, then we're pretty much good to go. I'm going to stop it here. I'm going to put it in a clean, straight-sided container with some measurement markings so that I can measure the percent rise really well. To me, that's very important when I make sourdough recipes. So I'm going to get this in here. We're going to put the cover on lightly. It will be a pretty stiff dough, so don't expect this rise to go crazy, but we are going to let it rise 50% overnight. So it's not going to look like it rose a ton, but it's going to rise 50%. So I recommend using measurement markings or a ruler and some tape or a marker to help you monitor that 50% rise. Anyway, once you are to the next day, you can go ahead, remove the dough from the container, and then we're going to divide it into 12 equal portions. I like to use a food scale for this. This will ensure that they're all equally portioned to make tying the knots easier, as well as have them bake more evenly. Okay, once you have all of your balls portioned out, you're going to just kind of press it down into a flat rectangle. Then we're going to spread about a teaspoon of pesto directly in the middle of it, and then maybe like a tablespoon or so, just kind of like a big pinch of shredded mozzarella. So I'll show you how I do that here. You want to avoid the edges because that'll make it harder to stick the dough to stick to itself when you try to roll it up. So you'll see what I mean as we get to it. I like using freshly shredded mozzarella because there's no weird additives that interfere with the melting like pre-shredded cheese at the grocery store has on it. So what we're going to do, grab the top and pull it over all of the shredded cheese and the pesto, and then press it down kind of like an envelope or something at the other side there. So the first few you do, you'll get the hang of this the more you do it. The first few might be kind of slow because you want to make sure you tuck in all of the mozzarella. You want to make sure you don't have too much pesto that they squeeze out when you do this. Then you're going to roll it over itself again. You can see how I did that there. Go ahead, squeeze and gently pull so that you pull this until it's about 6 to 8 inches long. That's long enough that you can then wrap it around and tie a knot. And then be careful. You can see mine dripping a little bit on the side there, so you just want to be careful as you do this. Like I said, the first 1 or 2 might be iffy, but you do get better at this as you go. And by the time you get to the end, you'll find the technique that works really well for you. So here I'll show you one more time. We're just flattening this into a rectangle. We're going to add about a teaspoon of pesto, spread it out throughout the middle, being careful to avoid the edges. And then we're going to do some shredded mozzarella. So put a little bit more in there. Then we're going to grab the top of the dough and pull it over like you're making almost a mini calzone or something like that. Pull it over, tuck all the cheese in, use your thumbs to help hold it in, and then seal the dough to get that pesto and cheese sealed inside. I like to pull the edges in too and just really get it sealed. Then I kind of pinch, pull, and tuck and just roll it over one more time so that we know it's really sealed. Gently squeeze and pull until it's about 6 to 8 inches long, and then we will just tie it into a pretty standard knot. If you have extra long edges, you can just tuck those edges underneath like that. Once all 12 knots are made, we're going to cover them lightly with saran wrap, and we're going to do our proof or our second rise here. And we're just going to probably give it about 2 hours or so. You want to get them slightly puffy, but honestly, you're not going to see a huge difference in rise during this proofing. So don't wait around for it to look visibly much bigger, because just the way that the dough is shaped, like knots like that, it's not going, it might see a little bit of puffiness, but you're not going to get like these giant knots that tell you it's ready. So you can see here when I'm putting it in the oven, they've got maybe a little bit of lightness to them, but they didn't rise significantly. Go ahead and bake those. We're going to melt a half stick of butter, and we're going to do a half teaspoon of garlic powder and a teaspoon of Italian seasoning and get that all whisked together. And then we're going to brush this with a pastry brush on top of our knots when they come out of the oven. Okay, pull the knots out of the oven, and then immediately we're gonna brush them with the butter. Do it while they're still nice and hot. I like to take my meat thermometer and just make sure they hit at least 190 degrees, and that's usually not an issue. These bake up really well. So grab your pastry brush and just get to it. Get the butter spread on all of your garlic knots. see how delicious these look. These are such a delicious treat to have, like with any Italian dinner or honestly anything. We like to make them with steaks, roast, whatever. But like, look at these cheesy, gooey deliciousness. Like when you pull one open there, you can see the melted cheese and the pesto. These are just a fun little treat, and they seem super fancy, but they're not that hard to make.